to our first speaker, Matthew Turnbull. Where is he?
I'm here. Thank you for having me.
So Matthew has been super kind to step forward. He's not even got any slides, just going to talk to you.
I didn't know I had to make slides, unfortunately.
How hardcore is that? We want to be a really supportive community and really encourage people to come out of communities like this. So I'm not going to talk too much about introduce Matthew. I'm going to let him do his own introduction. He's going to talk about his journey as a Scrum Master. Please, everybody, give him a super warm welcome.
So, full disclosure, I had an absolute belting joke lined up. However, I'm not going to say it in fear of getting sacked. But once the recording stopped, you can ask me afterwards and I'll let you know it. So yes, my name's Matt, I'm 24 and I'm from Leeds. No like it, no liked it? Anyone? No, yeah, so yeah, as Roy said, I am a Scrum Master and I want to talk to you a little bit about my journey as a Scrum Master and how I've developed over this 18 months period. But as all good stories start, we're going to start 6 years ago. I was working at Topman. Who remembers Topman? It went bust shortly after I left. Coincidence? I don't think so. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Likewise with most kids my age, 18, no idea what I wanted to do, but I was given an opportunity to work as an associate QA at HSBC. And when I say given the opportunity, I knew the test manager. So she gave me the opportunity, and that was my first experience with a Scrum Master. And weirdly enough, I can remember my first ever daily Scrum. Sat there in the office, lad next to me, James, said, James, what do I say? What do you mean? What do I say on this daily Scrum? He went, just give an update, what you've been working on. Got it. Scrum Master went round, each individual got to me. So Matt, yeah, what have you been working on? Nothing critical to report. Went round, everyone else got the updates. James goes, takes his head off. Nothing critical to report? What does that mean? Are you a robot? And I went, there was no right or wrong, I didn't know what it was. Then I remember the retros we had, we'd go around each individual, get their updates, what went well, what didn't go well, but I never really understood it. And this was when COVID hit, so I was working from the office, didn't have that face-to-face interactions, which I normally would have done. And I decided I wanted to branch out. So I went from QA and wanted to be a developer, as most people might want to do. So I joined Every as a support developer, which was an L2 or a service team, wanting to get into development. And I got put on the rebrand. So when Every was Hermes, I was part of the team that did the email notifications and changed it from Hermes to now Every. And that's when I worked with a Scrum Master called Dean, who really did inspire me. And that's what triggered me to think, okay, maybe Scrum is something that I do want to do. So how I got into, I went to my first interview as a Scrum Master, zero real experience as a Scrum Master, and I didn't get it, unfortunately. However, I did meet two very important people in my journey, which was Jeff O'Brien and Glenn Forbes, who gave me some pointers, mentored me a little bit, and I was given an opportunity by a man who's here today who I won't say because he's told me not to, and they gave me an opportunity. And I was chuffed, 22 years old as a Scrum Master, massive salary increase. I felt privileged, like, wow, how have I got this? How can I repay this? And the first thing I thought was, I am going to work so hard. I'm going to be dedicated, going to do homework when I get home, learn more about Scrum, and that's what I did. I worked so hard, everything in meetings. I was the first one to do all the talking, all the communication came from me. I wanted to be the main man. And January was rolling up. I was going skiing in Bulgaria, and a week before I went skiing, I thought, you know what, I'm going to prepare a handover. So team member A, your job is this. Team member B, your job is this. Team member C, your job is this. Fantastic. I'm quality, best thing to slice bread. Went on holiday. I'm on top of a mountain in Bulgaria, minus whatever. Helmet, ski, what are you for skiing? Ski boots, skis, gloves. 1 minute, boys. Glove off. Teams I want phone in Bulgaria. Messaging people on Teams. Looking at a retro, at a review. At the time, I thought, perfectly normal. Lads, I'll meet you at bottom. Just responding to some team messages. Didn't think of it. Phone back away. Finished skiing. Got back a week later. Daily Scrum morning, guys. How's things been? First thing someone said to me was, oh, Matt, never go on holiday again. Fell apart without you. He meant it as a compliment, but who's seen a film where an actor has a realisation? It was like My realisation was, I've been doing this all wrong. This team have become too reliant on me. I was too involved with this team. I was doing a good job personally, but I didn't do any coaching. I was doing no coaching at all. I was with a team full of great developers, great testers, but they couldn't communicate without me. I was that main cog, which I thought was fantastic, but you take me out of that equation, it fell apart. There was no communication. So I thought, how can I rectify this? How can I turn this around? What do I do? How does one coach? I don't know. There's so many coaches, so many different techniques. What do I do? So I thought, okay, next time a situation comes to me, how am I going to react? So next day, someone come up to me and said, Matt, we've got this issue. I forget what the issue was, to be honest. And normally I'd say, okay, this is what I think we should do. But then I just went, well, what do you think we should do? And he was like, oh, I don't know. I said, well, there's no right or answer. What do you think we should do as a team? What do you think? What's your opinion? Why don't we try A, B, C? Why don't we try this and that? Go for it. Try it. It might not be right. It might fall and burn. But have that self-accountability and self-management to try something new. It may fail. We'll see how we get on. Tried it. Probably did fail, but it gave us something to look at. Give us something to inspect and adapt. Okay, we've tried something, it didn't work out. How can we change it? How can we improve it? It gives us something to go on. And that's what I started doing. I started being more of a coach, being less of a doer and more of a coach, asking questions to team members. Sometimes team members will go to a Scrum Master and want them to solve everything. We can't, unfortunately. I'd love to, but we can't. The most important part of Scrum, or a big part of Scrum, is having a team that can try things, experiment and communicate with each other, discuss as a team what's the best method for this issue that we've got. That's the main sort of focus, or main issue I had when I first started being a Scrum Master is the coach. And another issue I had, I'll do an experiment now. I want everyone to put their hands up. Not yet, Steve, not yet. Who here's been on a Teams meeting? Okay. Has there ever been a silence on that Teams meeting? Is there always one person that always fills that silence, fills the void that you know of? Me. If there was like a silence for about 3 seconds, I don't want to say anything. Painful silence, I hate it. I always used to go, someone asked a question, for example, I know this question's not for me. And I'd wait for a few seconds. Right, I'm going to start again. So my name's Matt, I work for everything. No, I'm joking. So I'd wait for a few seconds. I know this question's not for me. Is that one for me, Steve? I know it's not one for me. I just couldn't help but fill the void. And when I think back to that time when I started as a Scrum Master, I was so appreciative of the role I've been given. I did want to impress. So I'd just talk and talk and talk like I'm doing now. Just talk and talk and talk. And what I'd end up doing is I'd end up going to a meeting, whatever that meeting may be, and I'd come out with about 10 items all for me. You want that doing? I'll sort it, mate. You need work doing? We'll sort it. 3 sprints? We'll do it in 2 sprints, mate. Just for you. Because I wanted to impress people. So I'd go into a meeting, come out with 10 items. Who can guess what happened to those items? Anyone? Didn't get done. Didn't get done. So I went into a meeting wanting to really impress, picked up loads of items, and what happened? I did the opposite. I made people think, God, Matt's bloody rubbish. He's done all this work and he's done nothing. So I thought, God, what do I need to do? Painful as it may seem, when I'm on a meeting, I have to just not fill that silence. Because if I speak, I'll end up digging a hole, and all of a sudden I've got 10 or so items as well. And also, going back to that, filling that void, sometimes I'd just say yes to people in order to stop the conversation. We could be speaking with, we'll set the scene, speaking with stakeholder, we just started a sprint. They want work added into sprint. We can't do it. I know it's probably going to be a difficult conversation. They want work done. We can't do it. How can I approach that? Sometimes I'd say, you know what? Yeah, we'll do it just so they'd go away. Sprint comes to an end. We haven't done it. I get my head bitten off. So how can I stop that from happening? Have confidence to have these difficult conversations. It's not a difficult conversation. It's facts, unfortunately. Some things can't get done. And it's about having that confidence to do that. And that does take time. I wish I could be here to tell you this is what you need to do to be confident in speaking. There's no, in my opinion, I can't tell you a method of what to do. However, just give it time, try things, experiment. The worst thing that can happen if you say no or have a difficult conversation is you gain something from it. No one's going to shout at you. They might do, depending on where you work. No one's going to hear you at least, but you'll learn something about yourself. Another thing as well that I've really struggled with recently, and I think a lot of people in this room might struggle with it, is imposter syndrome. Has anyone ever thought or dealt with imposter syndrome? Does anyone want to share their experience as an imposter? Thought not. But I'm just going to have a bit of water because I've got a dry mouth. Imposter syndrome, yeah. Listen, as a Scrum Master, who's a Scrum Master in this room? So we've got a few. We've made mistakes, don't we, guys? How often do you guys beat yourself up about those mistakes? It happens. It happens. Who else works in IT? Who's a developer in this room? Do you guys make mistakes? Yeah, QA? You guys make mistakes? Make mistakes, but every time I made a mistake, God, I would go on for days. Steve, you'll adhere to this. I would go on for days around this one little mistake. Things happen. We work in complex environments. More often than not, things are going to go wrong. Things are going to go wrong. It's how we adapt to those situations. I always say, I'm not bothered about things going wrong, things changing. I'm bothered about how a team reacts to change. And that's what you need to think as a Scrum Master, as an individual. Things are going to go wrong. Nothing goes to plan. Nothing will go to plan. If it does, brilliant. But if it doesn't, how can you react to that? So what I started doing is, actually, Steve taught me a trick. Every time I did something wrong, made a mistake, I'd do 10 push-ups. So as you can see, I'm absolutely jacked now. So I made a lot of mistakes. But it was a little thing where, do these 10 push-ups, forget about it. Don't dwell on these mistakes. How can I improve and not make that mistake again, or help people to not make that mistake again? Because we are going to make mistakes. Another sort of problem I've had, and I appreciate all I'm saying is another problem. We're going to get onto good bits at the end, but it's a journey. Is implementing Scrum into a team is tough. It is tough. You Scrum Masters will know. You guys working in Scrum will know it can be tough. Getting it into an organisation is harder. So as a Scrum team, you adhere to these values and this way of working that makes you more efficient, makes you more self-managing, so you can work together and get things done more efficiently and quickly. But you might work with stakeholders who have no idea what Scrum is. They don't have a clue what Scrum is. So it's hard for them to realise, well, what is a sprint? What is the benefit of a review? What is this retros? Why can't you just do the work? This is the work that we want doing. Just do it. It's hard to have those conversations. I can see you nodding your head. Who's ever had difficult conversations with stakeholders around why work can't be done? All the time. And it's difficult because they can't see where you're coming from. And that is a realisation that I had, because I was trying to explain what Scrum was to stakeholders, but sometimes they're not really bothered about where it comes from. They have a different set of rules, they have a different set of way of working, they have work they want done, we're going to do the work. So what I started doing was getting more aligned and having conversations with these stakeholders. What sort of point of view are they coming from? How can we help to address that and explain the benefits of Scrum? Because what we had going was, we would start a sprint, for example, and 2 days later the priorities would change. So many times the priorities would change, and we'd have stakeholders going directly to developers, which is incredibly challenging because developers, they want to get on with the developers I worked with wanted to get on with the work, and they didn't want to not really speak to stakeholders as such, but it distracted them from that work, and that's what a Scrum Master is there for, to shield them sometimes. So we had that problem of stakeholders going directly to developers. So I thought, how could I help that? So it was just having regular catch-ups with them, making sure that they're aligned so there's no changes in priority that's going to upcome and twitch everything. Being transparent. Yeah. I'm trying to think what else I want to speak. You know what? I've got a head of schedule, actually. I've been rattling on for quite a while. Does anyone have any questions for me so far?
Do you have to take a breath?
No, but...
Scrum Masters don't breathe.
I know, yes.
And we have a demo of the 10 push-ups.
Demo of the what, sorry?
The 10 push-ups.
Temper, absolutely not. No, I'm goose. I've made plenty of mistakes today that I've made. Well, I've talked a lot about problems that I faced, but I'll talk now about why I absolutely love being a Scrum Master and working with Scrum teams. Because when I inherited teams, or when you inherit teams, you might get to know individuals. As a Scrum team, you might see things that you want to tweak, and they might be a bit timid at first, not really communicating. But when you see them genuinely trying to be better at communicating, trying things for themselves, it's like, that is what we want to see. See teams taking more accountability, trying things out. All Scrum is an experiment. That's all it is, experimenting. And if things don't go wrong, look at it, be transparent about it, inspect it and adapt it. How can we change things? And that's what we want to do. So people who do work in Scrum teams here, I would encourage you, just try things out. If you're not sure, just try it out. Speak to your Scrum Master. They will love that. If you speak to your Scrum Master, ask them about Scrum, they will love it. So just try things out. Don't be scared about things going wrong, because things will go wrong. That's life, unfortunately, but it's how we inspect, adapt, and be transparent. about things. I've absolutely flown through this. Maybe I'm a bit nervous, but has anyone else got any other questions for me at all? 2, fantastic. Yeah.
Who speaks now and fills a void now? You don't. Is there someone that's taken your place?
Well, I don't fill voids anymore, as you learn.
But who does now? Is there someone that's just immediately slotted into that place?
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant in this actual talk. Sorry, I was miles off then. It's been recorded, so no names, but there's a few.
Yeah.
I've got names of, yeah. There's a few. Steve's not one of them, though, of course. There was another question at the back. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned experimenting and feeling free to make mistakes. And I find it's easy when things are going not so well.
Yeah.
It's easy to find things that you can do better and try and experiment with.
Yeah.
But when things are going quite well, as humans we're quite bad at finding ways to improve, which I think is really important as part of the Scrum or Agile process of finding ways to improve even when you're smashing it.
Yeah.
Do you have any experience or insights on how to be better at finding those ways when things are going well?
Yeah, so going back to when things are going well, how do we improve? So there's a great sort of method that I use, not a method, experiment, of where you get team members to move one counter to another bucket and you keep doing that. And the way you do it, what you want to do is look a bit quicker at it. And there might be times where we might be really good at something, we try something out thinking it's going to do better and make us better, but it actually makes us worse. So there's things you can do, but it goes back to all that, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I think there are things that. It's an interesting question. No, you know what? I've not really had that experience to think when things are going well, what can we change? I think.
Sorry. I was going to say, one thing that I've done in that situation is basically change the way I do my retrospective. So instead of doing a standard kind of what's the stop, start, continue, that kind of stuff. So I can actually get people to think about working different ways. One way that we did it was talking about, it was like phrasing the work that they did in a sprint as a heist movie, and kind of thinking about the stories that they were doing and how they could, how do they assemble the team, and how do they break into the bank vault and all this other stuff like that. And what it essentially did is it got people not thinking necessarily about kind of like the workflow, but actually thinking about work and inspecting it, but in a way that meant that they weren't necessarily just think of it as like a standard retrospective process. And out of that, I think we've got like 3 actions to do to actually improve the team's work, but they wouldn't think like that without thinking in that kind of weird, zany, creative way of doing it.
Thinking the way you approach the problem.
Yeah.
What you said.
Thanks.
No worries, mate. Any other questions at all, guys? Plenty. Wow. I don't know what to go to first, do you? Do you, your closest?
Sure. Okay. So how do you sort of help your developers and testers contribute to like planning sessions?
Yeah, so a lot of the times what I've seen personally, there's always, even though as developers we're all equal, there's always that one person that does speak more frequently. It might be hierarchical, it might be a lead developer, might take the lead almost. But sometimes what I'll do is I'll sometimes ask a lead developer not to join a planning session just to see how the guys react and how they communicate, because that's something I used to do as well, because the team got very reliant on me hosting and really running a daily scrum. So when I didn't turn up, I wanted to see what that reaction was and would they crumble or would they do it themselves. So sometimes I'll ask the developer not to join just to see how they get on, or maybe just speak to them beforehand and say, let so and so get involved first, see what they think as well. That's what I would do. I forget I'd have them guys. Yeah.
So in a daily scrum, what's the hardest moment you've had and how did you tackle that?
Yeah, so the sort of main sort of high problem I've got is we always adhere to the 3 questions. But the main sort of problem I've had with a daily scrum was daily scrum, how did I find that's a good question. I've not had a moment in a daily scrum that's really challenged me, to be honest. The sort of challenge I had with a daily scrum was we were so reliant on these 3 questions. Who knows what these 3 questions are? Someone shout them out.
What do you do today? Today's.
Yeah. So I've not really had a challenge on a daily scrum by a developer or a member of the team, but the challenge I have with daily scrums is we always adhere to those 3 questions, and sometimes, and I'm no master, it happens in my scrums a lot of the times the guys did wait for me to invite them in. Steve, what did you do yesterday? Adam, what did you do yesterday? So it's about getting them to realise that meeting's for them to communicate with each other rather than me being the host. So that's sort of the main challenge I've had on the daily scrum.
The biggest problem I have with people saying what they did yesterday is they start accounting for themselves and their work, and we don't run a blame culture. You don't need to tell me to justify the work you've been doing.
Yeah.
Daily Scrum should really be about how we're going to get the stories that are in motion to done. I don't care what you did yesterday, what are you going to do today to make it happen?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I don't like the 3 questions. I threw those away a long time ago and said, what are you going to do to get current stories to done?
Yeah.
What's the discussions you need to have following this meeting to get that done?
Yeah.
Do the technical discussion now, realise you have to have one, book that in 15 minutes time, but what do you need to do to get these stories done? Not, I don't care what you did yesterday, unless that's an impediment to the day, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. That's a challenge I've had coaching that out with the guys, and a lot of the guys sometimes as well is the guys would use the daily scrum as their only opportunity to communicate and raise things. So we might have a blocker midday and I think, oh, we'll raise our daily scrum tomorrow, but it's about encouraging. Daily scrum is an opportunity to communicate, but it's not your only opportunity to communicate. So it's a great question. Who else had the hand up?
I was going to ask you a question about stakeholders. Obviously, the biggest challenge we have is they don't have the Agile mindset quite often. They say they've got different priorities. Have you managed to use any examples or techniques on stakeholders to get them to move towards an Agile mindset or realise that's a different landscape to the one they're operating in?
Yes, it's a good question. It's a good question. So I've had a lot of experience with that, a lot of challenging conversations, and the main sort of focal point I go from is explain the benefits of Agile. So if you give us this space and the trust to do things in an Agile way, in a Scrum framework, you will see the benefits rather than, here's the work, do it now. Almost, that's sort of the FR. But it's so much easier said than done. I'm making it sound easy. I've had a lot of very difficult conversations. It's been a very long process. And it's not 100% there, but it is getting better.
So the flip of that, have you ever had issues with stakeholders who really like Scrum or Safe and it's not necessarily what the team
Say again,
says?
sorry.
So have you ever had issues where stakeholders really like Scrum or Safe and basically it's not actually the thing that is good for the team, and then you've had to essentially kind of like figure out how to walk them back from this very prescriptive way of doing Agile?
Do you know what? Honestly, I've not had that experience. I couldn't give you, I'm not going to try waffle an answer and say I haven't had that at the moment, but have you had that?
Yes, yeah.
Would you like to explain what happened?
Yeah, sure. So Specsavers, who I used to do some kind of like work for as part of a big consultancy that I won't name, they were really into Safe, and they really liked planning out, 3 months and that kind of stuff like that. They like to have Scrum in place so that the reporting framework was across all the teams and stuff like that, but the thing is that they forced a lot of sprint planning on teams that didn't really need it because they knew what they were doing. So eventually, it was like having to fight, how can we get something which like Kanban, for instance, something that's less prescriptive, that we can free up the time spent doing sprint planning. And we ended up doing Scrum Ban, because we had to have this kind of like cut-off point in order to have it, but still have the flow of work. It was fun. They had some high-up people that really bought into this thing, so it's like, for them it was like, well, I can't not do the thing that I've just spent loads of money training everybody up to do.
Yeah.
But it killed the productivity of the team. When we switched, we did I think it was like 5x of the velocity, because we just removed all these barriers.
Yeah. No, but
don't do this process for the sake of the process.
Yeah, no, basically that.
Isn't it people and communications for outcomes over process? You still respect there's not need to be a process, but I think a lot of the trouble we're having at the moment is everyone's making process the thing that is going to drive Agile, and it's not helpful.
But yeah, I've never had that experience. So I'd love to have 5 minutes for you afterwards just to learn a bit more about it, if that's okay. Has anyone else got any other questions, guys? I'm very humble by all the questions I've got, actually. Yes.
Doing well. Yeah.
Just a quick one. Do you prefer the daily scrum to be in the morning or in the afternoon?
Oh.
I am judging this answer by the way.
Do you know what? I have never been or facilitated or attended an afternoon daily scrum. So I'm not a morning person, but I'm a morning person in this instance. But question back to you, which do you prefer?
Oh, afternoon.
Really? What's the rationale behind that? Well,
I just don't like getting out of bed.
So, what time?
It's literally 24 hours between it. It doesn't matter what time it's at, does it?
No. What time we are?
Oh, just after lunch,
No.
2-ish.
No, I mean the morning ones, the out of bed ones.
Right.
What would be too early for you?
9 o'clock.
What, 10 o'clock, meet halfway?
I can do 10 o'clock. Yeah.
There we go then. Middle ground, yeah. Yeah, any other questions at all, guys?
I'm just going to add on to Ash's one there. Is there not an argument, sorry I'm conscious of time, Is there an argument that marketing maybe make more sense in some of these instances because you know what blockers you're having during the day and you haven't forgotten them overnight?
We changed it at Ticket Arena and it made a world of difference. Our morning scrums were an absolute fucking tire fire. Half an hour, people were arguing, fighting each other.
Yours are half an hour, were
they weren't meant to be fucking hard.
Yeah.
And then we changed it to the afternoon and there were 10 minutes and everyone was human. So, yeah.
Do you know what? I have never done an afternoon daily scrum, but are you gonna agree with me?
Not to disagree with Graham because she'll only swear at me, but I've done an afternoon scrum and it's fucking awful. Nobody liked it. We all, it's like at least in the morning, you're still trying to get up to speed rather than thinking about going out.
I think we've opened a can of worms here.
I love this question.
Yeah.
We are buzzing.
Right, so we'll do an experiment. Who's morning daily scrum?
Only just the morning.
Who's afternoon? Right, we outnumber them then. Go on, explain why.
Just imagine you're working with the Americans.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Wake up in the afternoon and then in the morning here. What am I going to do? I'll work with them in the afternoon. So I'll have my scrum or the Indians to do it.
Yeah, that is a good point. Do you know what? I'll do an experiment then. I will change one of my scrums soon to an afternoon one, and I'll feed back to Steve on. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that.
Team in California has to be 6 o'clock in the evening, doesn't it? I don't know.
Well, I'll do that experiment and let you know how it goes on. Is there any other questions? Oh, yes.
So you talked a lot about your journey so far.
Yeah.
What's next?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. So recently, I did a course with a certain facilitating company called Nexus, which is Scaled Scrum. I'm just starting to implement that now into the organisation, into the Scrum teams I'm working with. It's going well so far. I really enjoyed that. So Nexus is the sort of one for me. That would be my next thing. So if you're interested in Nexus, not doing a bit of free advertising for you, Steve and the Scrum Facilitators do a fantastic course. And then all Nexus is around raising and managing dependencies between cross teams, which was 3 Scrum teams working on the similar product ones. But that is my next step, Scaled. And hopefully, the next Agile Yorkshire, I can come back and talk about
We would
Nexus.
love to have you back, Matthew.
You can come back and see how I get on, yeah?
You don't need any slides. I'm sure you can talk about Nexus without slides as well. Great. Should we all give Matthew a round?
Yeah, thank you.